Annika stood on the balcony of her Cape Town home, savoring the view of Table Mountain. Married to Sifo, a successful architect, her life seemed perfect. Their 2 daughters, Naledi and Bongi, brought joy to their lives. However, her bliss was often clouded by her mother-in-law, Mama Thandi, whose disdain for Annika was no secret. Mama Thandi barely masked her disappointment at the absence of a male heir. During a family gathering, Mama Thandi made a snide remark about how real families have sons to carry the name. Sifo attempted to mediate, but the tension was palpable. Annika decided to brush off the comment, focusing instead on the laughter of her daughters playing nearby. Little did she know that Mama Thandi's resentment was about to escalate beyond words. Weeks later, Annika noticed strange occurrences around the house. Naledi woke up screaming from nightmares about shadows in her room, and Bongi often felt sick without explanation. At first, Annika dismissed these as coincidences. However, when her daughters began avoiding certain areas of the house, Annika grew concerned. Mama Thandi's visits became more frequent, always accompanied by a small basket of blessings she claimed were for the children's health. Annika's instincts told her to keep a watchful eye. One evening, as she cleaned the girls' room, she found peculiar beads tied under their beds. She decided to confront Sifo, but his dismissive attitude left her feeling isolated. Something sinister was unfolding, and Annika vowed to protect her daughters at all costs. Annika decided to confide in her best friend, Zanil, a woman known for her sharp instincts and fierce loyalty. Over tea, Zanil listened carefully as Annika recounted the strange beads and her daughter's sudden nightmares. Mama Thandi's hands aren't clean, Zanil muttered, warning Annika to be cautious. That evening, as Annika tucked Naledi into bed, her daughter whispered, "Mommy, the shadows say they're hungry." The chilling statement left Annika shaken. Determined to find answers, she began observing Mama Thandi more closely during her visits, noting the strange chants she whispered under her breath. One evening, Annika followed Mama Thandi discreetly after she left their house. The older woman made her way to a secluded area in the township, entering a small, dimly lit hut. Annika watched from a distance as Mama Thandi spoke with an older sangoma. Annika recognized the woman. She was infamous in the community for her dark rituals. Fear coursed through Annika as she realized Mama Thandi might be working to harm her family. But without evidence, confronting her would only worsen the situation. Instead, Annika decided to seek out answers of her own, setting her on a dangerous path. Days later, while organizing a shelf in Sifo's study, Annika stumbled upon an old leather-bound diary. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but the name inscribed on the first page, Nolathando Makais, belonged to one of Sifo's aunts who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. As Annika flipped through the pages, a pattern emerged. Nolathando wrote about Mama Thandi's obsession with a male heir and the lengths she went to ensure her son's lineage. Nolathando had fled after enduring years of torment for not bearing a son. The diary confirmed Annika's suspicions. Mama Thandi had a dark history of driving out unfit wives. Armed with the diary, Annika turned to Zanil once more. Together, they pieced together the connections between Mama Thandi's actions and the strange happenings in Annika's home. Zanil suggested speaking to an elder in the community who was well-versed in spiritual matters. The elder, Gogo Noma, listened intently as Annika recounted her story. Gogo Noma confirmed that Mama Thandi was likely invoking spirits to harm Annika's daughters. "You must shield your children," she advised, giving Annika protective charms to place in their room. But the elder warned that Mama Thandi's ties to the sangoma made her a formidable opponent. Despite Gogo Noma's charms, the eerie occurrences in the house intensified. Bongi began drawing pictures of a dark figure with red eyes, claiming it watched her while she slept. Naledi became increasingly withdrawn, often muttering about the bad woman who visited her dreams. Annika confronted Sifo again, but he dismissed her concerns, accusing her of being paranoid. Frustrated and frightened, Annika realized she could no longer rely on her husband. If she wanted to protect her family, she would have to face Mama Thandi and the sangoma head-on. Annika's resolve grew stronger as she noticed a strange mark appearing on Naledi's arm, a dark, spiraling pattern that seemed to glow faintly at night. Alarmed, she returned to Gogo Noma, who confirmed that it was the sangoma's mark, a spiritual link meant to weaken and control the child. Furious and desperate, Annika decided to confront Mama Thandi. She accused her mother-in-law of putting the children in danger, but Mama Thandi denied everything with an icy calmness. "You've let your imagination run wild, Annika," she said, but her smirk betrayed her guilt. Annika knew she needed undeniable proof of Mama Thandi's actions to protect her daughters. That night, Annika stayed awake, watching over her daughters. At midnight, a cold breeze swept through the house, and Naledi began to scream, writhing in her bed. Her body stiffened, and she muttered words in a language Annika didn't understand. Panicked, Annika grabbed the protective charms and held them close to her daughter, praying for the nightmare to end. When Naledi finally calmed, she whispered, "She's coming for me, Mommy." Annika clutched her daughter tightly, realizing the sangoma's powers were stronger than she had feared. She resolved to confront the dark force directly, even if it meant risking her own safety. Annika returned to the diary, reading deeper into Nolathando's accounts. She discovered that Mama Thandi had once sought the sangoma's help to curse another wife who had failed to bear a son. The curse had caused the woman's mysterious death, which the family had dismissed as an illness. Annika's stomach churned. She realized she was up against more than just hatred. She was fighting a legacy of malevolent tradition. Nolathando's final entry mentioned a hidden shrine Mama Thandi used for her rituals. Determined, Annika decided to find it and expose the truth. Late at night, Annika searched the garden, guided by the clues in Nolathando's diary. Under a cluster of old jacaranda trees, she uncovered a stone slab covered in strange symbols. Beneath it, she found a small hollow containing bones, burnt herbs, and an eerie doll bound with red string. Before she could fully process her discovery, Mama Thandi appeared behind her, her voice cold and sharp. "You shouldn't have come here, Annika," she hissed. Annika stood her ground, holding the diary as a shield. "You won't harm my daughters," she declared, though her hands trembled. Mama Thandi dismissed Annika's threats, but her tone changed when Annika mentioned the diary. "You think you can fight me with stories?" Mama Thandi sneered. Still, the older woman's eyes betrayed fear when Annika threatened to show the diary to Saifo and the community elders. Cornered, Mama Thandi offered a chilling bargain: leave the family, and she would spare the daughters. Refusing to abandon her children, Annika declared she would fight, no matter the cost. As Mama Thandi stormed away, Annika knew the battle was far from over. She needed a plan to protect her daughters and reveal the truth. Annika reached out to Zanil and Gogo Noma, revealing what she had uncovered. They suggested enlisting others who had been victims of Mama Thandi's schemes. With Gogo Noma's help, Annika located 2 former wives of the Mackay's family, both of whom had suffered under Mama Thandi's oppressive rule. The women shared their harrowing experiences, strengthening Annika's resolve. Together, they decided to confront the sangoma and sever Mama Thandi's spiritual ties. But as they planned their next steps, strange omens began to appear. Dead birds outside Annika's house and unsettling dreams haunting her sleep. The sangoma made her presence known with a chilling act. She left a bloodied goat horn on Annika's doorstep, a symbol of death. Gogo Noma interpreted it as a warning to back down. Despite her fear, Annika refused to be intimidated. "If they want a fight, they'll get one," she told Zanil. Determined to break the curse, Annika and her allies prepared for a direct confrontation with the sangoma. Gogo Noma warned that the ritual to protect her daughters would require great sacrifice, but Annika was ready to face whatever came next. Annika began preparing her daughters for the fight ahead, ensuring their safety by surrounding them with protective charms from Gogo Noma. She also arranged for Naledi and Bongi to stay temporarily with Zanil, far from Mama Thandi's reach. However, the ominous presence of the sangoma grew stronger. Mama Thandi, furious that Annika hadn't taken her deal, confronted her son, Saifo, and twisted the story to portray Annika as a disobedient and manipulative wife. Saifo, caught between his mother and his wife, struggled to see the truth. When he demanded an explanation from Annika, she showed him the diary, hoping it would open his eyes. To Annika's dismay, Saifo dismissed the diary as old superstitions and accused her of tearing the family apart. "You're letting your fears control you, Annika," he said, storming out. Annika was crushed but undeterred. She realized that if Saifo refused to stand by her, she would have to face the battle without him. Zanil reminded her that Saifo's denial was rooted in fear of his mother, who had controlled him since childhood. "He may not fight with us, but that doesn't mean we stop," Zanil said firmly. With her friend's unwavering support, Annika resolved to move forward. Gogo Noma guided Annika and her allies to the sangoma's lair, a remote cave in the outskirts of Cape Town. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of burning herbs, and the walls were adorned with disturbing symbols. They found evidence of rituals linked to Mama Thandi, including personal items belonging to Naledi and Bongi. The sangoma appeared, her eyes glowing with malevolence. "You dare enter my domain," she growled. Annika stood her ground, clutching the diary and a talisman from Gogo Noma. The sangoma warned that breaking the curse would require a sacrifice, but Annika refused to back down. With Gogo Noma leading the way, Annika and her allies began the counter-ritual to break the sangoma's hold on her daughters. The process was grueling, requiring focus and resilience. The sangoma, enraged by their defiance, summoned dark forces to disrupt the ritual. Strange winds howled through the cave, and shadows danced on the walls. Annika held onto her daughter's photographs, channeling her love and determination. "You won't take them from me," she cried, her voice cutting through the chaos. The sangoma's grip began to weaken, but the battle was far from over. Meanwhile, back at home, Mama Thandi was plagued by nightmares. The spirits she had summoned turned against her, showing her horrifying visions of the harm she had caused. In one vision, she saw Nalathando and the other women she had driven away, their faces filled with anguish. Mama Thandi awoke in a cold sweat, feeling the weight of her actions. For the first time, doubt crept into her heart. Could the sangoma's powers be exacting a toll on her as well? She decided to visit the sangoma's lair to regain control, unaware of the resistance building against her. As Mama Thandi arrived at the lair, she was met with a fierce confrontation. Annika, emboldened by her progress, accused Mama Thandi of endangering her grandchildren for her own selfish desires. "How many families will you destroy before you're satisfied?" Annika demanded. Mama Thandi, shaken by her nightmares, attempted to defend herself, but her words faltered. The sangoma, realizing her power was slipping, turned on Mama Thandi, accusing her of being weak. The confrontation escalated into chaos, with the spirits summoned by the sangoma turning violent. The sangoma unleashed her full power, summoning a dark entity to attack Annika and her allies. Gogo Noma countered with protective chants, creating a shield around the group. Annika, fueled by her maternal instincts, stepped forward to face the entity, clutching the diary as a symbol of truth. The battle was fierce, with the entity attacking Annika's mind, showing her terrifying visions of losing her daughters. But Annika's love for Naledi and Bongi proved stronger than her fear. She shouted their names, breaking the entity's hold and weakening the sangoma further. The sangoma's dark entity began to weaken under Annika's defiance, but the spirits in the lair grew restless. The walls of the cave seemed to pulse with energy as Gogo Noma warned. The spirits are angry, and they demand justice for the pain caused. Mama Thandi, now visibly shaken, begged the spirits for mercy. But the spirits were unyielding, showing her the faces of the women and children she had harmed through her actions. Annika seized the moment, imploring the spirits to help her protect her daughters and break the sangoma's influence for good. Realizing she was losing control, the sangoma tried to flee, but the spirits wouldn't let her escape. They encircled her, trapping her in a vortex of energy. As the sangoma screamed, her powers were stripped away, leaving her vulnerable for the first time. Gogo Noma completed the ritual, sealing the sangoma's abilities and breaking her connection to Mama Thandi. The lair fell silent, and the oppressive energy lifted. Annika's daughters, though far away, felt the shift, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. Outside the cave, Mama Thandi broke down in tears, confessing the truth to Annika and the other women. "I was blinded by tradition and my desire for a male heir," she admitted. "I didn't realize the pain I was causing until it was too late." Annika listened, her anger tempered by the realization that Mama Thandi was also a victim of societal expectations. However, she made it clear that forgiveness would take time. "You must face the consequences of your actions, Mama," Annika said firmly. The events in the cave sent ripples through the community as Annika, with Gogo Noma's guidance, shared her story with the village elders. The diary, combined with testimonies from the other wives, exposed Mama Thandi's history of harm. The elders, recognizing the damage caused by outdated traditions, vowed to address the systemic issues that perpetuated the preference for male children. Mama Thandi, though disgraced, was given an opportunity to make amends through service to the community. Back at home, Saifo struggled to process the revelations about his mother. He apologized to Annika for doubting her and promised to support her fully moving forward. Together, they began the slow process of rebuilding trust and strengthening their marriage. Annika focused on creating a safe and loving environment for Naledi and Bongi, who had endured so much despite their young age. She taught them about the strength of women and the importance of standing up against injustice. One night, Annika dreamed of the spirits, who appeared not as vengeful entities but as serene figures. They thanked her for breaking the cycle of harm and promised to watch over her family. When she woke, Annika felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. Inspired, she decided to start a women's support group in the community, providing a safe space for wives and mothers facing similar struggles. Her actions earned widespread respect, turning her from a target of scorn into a beacon of hope. Mama Thandi, now humbled, began working with the support group, sharing her experiences and advocating against harmful traditions. Though her relationship with Annika remained strained, they found a fragile truce in their shared goal of protecting future generations. The community began to shift, slowly but surely, as more women found the courage to speak out and demand change. Annika's bravery had sparked a movement that would continue to grow. Months later, Annika hosted a ceremony to honor daughters in the community, celebrating their strength and resilience. Naledi and Bongi stood proudly by her side, no longer living in fear of Mama Thandi or the sangoma. Saifo, seeing the joy and unity among the women, felt a deep pride in his family. He apologized publicly for his initial doubts and pledged to be an ally in the fight for equality. With the sangoma defeated and Mama Thandi on a path to redemption, Annika and her family embraced a fresh start. The diary, once a source of pain, now served as a reminder of the strength it took to break free from the past. As Annika looked at her daughters playing in the yard, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had fought for them, for herself, and for the countless women who had suffered in silence. Her story was far from over, but for now, she was content knowing she had made a difference. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Kindly share, subscribe and hit the bell button for more stories like this.